They poured a concrete slab on my riverbank, bolted a brand new metal shed to it, like they were planting a flag. Then told me it was a temporary community improvement, yeah. That happened, and 3 months later, that same shed was legally mine, while their president sat across from a prosecutor trying not to blink. I'm not a crusader. I'm a quiet guy, with a bad knee and a stubborn streak. I wanted coffee and sawdust in the mornings, bourbon and crickets. At night, peace. That's it, so if you're wondering how a man who hates meetings ended up schooling an HOA pull up a chair, I'd been in Hartwell County maybe 6 weeks when this started. Aunt Jo left me 130 acres, threaded by the Sage Fork River, and a ridge cabin, with bones worth saving, the kind of place where the roof sighs, when the wind turns, and the windows chatter like loose teeth. But you look past the work because the view makes promises of mornings. I ripped wallpaper and scraped glue evenings. I stared at the bend of the river and felt the static in my head finally thin out. You know what I mean. Early spring came wet and warm. The river slid a shoulder east and shaved a flat clearing out of the bank. I hadn't hiked down in a bit, because the pasture was soup, so when I finally went to walk the line, I expected deer prints and quiet, not tire tracks sunk deep. As my boot dual rear, heavy, not a neighbor's ATV. And then there it was, sitting square on new concrete, light gray siding. Trim color I recognized from up the hill at Meadowview Bluffs, where the stone entrance looks like a magazine ad. Padlock, fat and black. No note, no stake, no nothing. Just a smug rectangle squatting on my soil like it belonged. I checked my GPS pin, walked the trees, stared at those shiny anchor bolts catching sun like jewelry, and felt that low heat start at the base of my neck. Not panic. Just insult, the kind that wakes up your spine. I'm an architect by trade. I know a deliberate install when I see one. This wasn't a delivery dropped by accident. This was a decision. I hiked back from my drill, and a pry bar etiquette is for invited guests. Popped the hinge pins eased inside, and there it was. The footprint of a story they didn't want. Told boxes stacked to shoulder height, with neat blue labels. Like a fussy librarian had moved in Unit C, seasonal. Do not toss Marla office in the corner. An old white fridge with a Meadowview Bluffs property sticker, peeling off plastic deck chairs, a busted leaf blower, a folding table buried in wreaths, and an inflatable snowman with one painted eye, staring like even he knew this was dumb. I didn't touch a thing. I took. Slow photos, anchors, labels, that sticker. The lock, the pad, the whole scene. Then I put the hinges back, snapped the lock, and went home to make calls. The HOA phone tree played spa jazz that made my molars itch until it finally delivered me to the voice everyone in town warned me about. Marla Kingsley president tone, like a smile wrapped around a warning. Meadowview Bluffs. This is Marla, and I said Cal. Bennett here, south boundary on the Sage Fork. There's a metal shed on my land that wasn't there 2 days ago. Then a pause tastable, and she said, "Oh, that it's a temporary community storage unit for our Riverscape renewal initiative, as if we were talking about a misdelivered holiday card. Your temporary unit is bolted to concrete on my deeded property," I said. I didn't give permission, and her tone slid to silk over steel, Mr. Bennett. That bank has been neglected for years. No fence, no signage. Our board voted to steward the area to prevent loitering and litter. It's temporary, and it's for the community. And I said, You build on land. You don't own and call it stewardship. And she came back with the classic. If you want to prevent future improvements, you could join the association or place a boundary marker. And I laughed, because if you don't laugh, you yell. I'm not joining the organization that just built on me. Then I hung up before she could land the next condescending sentence, because I've learned you don't argue with people who think tone is policy. An hour later, a pickup rolled down the slope like it knew the path driver with a clipboard, started unloading boxes. Delivery for Meadowview, he said. She said this was the Green Corridor lot, and I let him do it. Because errand boys aren't the enemy. I took photos of plates and labels, and the clock on my phone later. I built a folder called Shed Log and saved 40-something files, plus a screen recording of the HOA site, where, surprise, there was no Riverscape renewal. You want to fight nice, you document. Next morning I went to the county records office, because paper, real paper, still moves mountains. The clerk with readers on the end of his nose clicked through a system older than my truck. Nothing approved, he said. One application denied for temporary storage on non-HOA land. Filed by Calder Kingsley. The last name didn't surprise me. I paid for copies, stepped into Sun, called a surveyor. I trust. Clint Forster showed up with a total station that looks stolen from NASA, and an assistant who moves like he's setting a watch. I pointed at the clearing. He cracked a grin, like a man who loves work. That answers questions of 3 hours later. He had GPS points, a drone overlay, and a printout that sang 87 feet inside your line, not brushing it, not kissing it, camped out on the rug. The aerial looked like a confession, gray rectangle, deep in my parcel. With a clean ruler line from stake to concrete. Judges love numbers that don't argue, and so do I. I called a lawyer who actually calls you back. Nora Pike, khakis, calm voice, eyes like plumb bobs. Sent her the denial copy. The overlay. The photos. The recording of Marla's stewardship speech told her I wanted them to admit it. And she said, "You've got trespass and unlawful construction clean. If you want the confession. We'll hold the civil notice until the sheriff has a look." We mirrored the evidence to a cloud and a second email, because computers die and people get cute. 2 days later, Sheriff Boone Kincaid eased up my drive, while the dew still held tall boots that have stories a mustache that pays union dues. I handed him a tidy packet deed. Survey denial photos. He read like a man who has seen every flavor of dumb, dressed up as authority. Got a warrant to inspect and seize if needed, he said. Walk me down. And we did. He knocked twice on the metal, like habit cut the lock gentle, as snipping a grape stem stepped inside, and said nothing for a long breath, because the air smelled like plastic and mildew, and something worse. Box labels lit up like a bingo card. Finance receipts vendor. Confidential on a sagging table. 3 file boxes with color tabs lined like parade flags. He gloved up, opened one RVC vendor ledger, another. Budget adjustments. Confidential, a third. An envelope with cash logs, 2 USB drives, and a manila folder literally labeled backfill statements. Do not file. You can't write comedy that tight. He called in evidence tape went up. A deputy posted. Flashes started popping items. Walked out in numbered bags. Like we'd wandered into a TV arrest, and right then a silver SUV skidded to a stop. Up top, Marla in a storm. Front of posture, with 2 board members flanking one Bluetooth guy. 1 tablet shield. "Excuse me," she called. "You can't take our property," and Boone met her at the tape with patience that said, this wasn't his first rodeo. "Ma'am, active evidence scene. Please remain behind the line." She raised her chin, verbal agreement with the caretaker, and I said, "You mean my Aunt Jo, who's been gone 8 months?" That landed. She tried the word confusion, like it could erase concrete, claimed common use. Green space, Boone kept it flat. Not confusion, unauthorized construction, and maybe evidence tampering. The judge will sort it. After that, things sped up the way they do. When money and pride meet gravity, the safe cracked. The prosecutor read the pattern. Glowed ugly maintenance invoices for work that never happened. Duplicate payments to 2 companies with the same EIN checks to Kingsley. Civic Maintenance, LLC registered to Calder Kingsley. Cash withdrawals under Community Refreshment Fund that looked like a slush pile. And once a couple board members felt the wind turn, the leaks started emails. Thumb drives. A woman named Sandra once, Marla's loudest cheerleader, sat down and said the quiet part out loud. She told us to approve fake invoices because no one would check. Power makes you brave until it makes you sloppy. You know. Meadowview called an emergency meeting that turned into polite suburban yelling with lemonade. I didn't go. My buddy Dave gave me the play. By play, she said. You ambushed her. Called it political. Said you were anti-community and hoarding river access like a baron. A baron with a leaky canoe, I said. But the tide had turned once you say, duplicate EIN out loud enough. Dads in cargo shorts start Googling. Court isn't TV. It smells like carpet cleaner and waiting. I wore a clean flannel and the same boots that scuffed that padlock. The judge walked a timeline that didn't wiggle. Deed survey with GPS points that sing drone stills. With a gray rectangle sitting 87 feet inside my line. A surveyor who doesn't exaggerate, a board ally who decided sleep was better than loyalty. The prosecutor didn't grandstand. He let facts carry the baseline. And then the ruling came simple and sharp. The structure forfeited to me as restitution damages. In the mid-90,000s for devaluation, remediation, legal time, an injunction like a steel fence. Meadowview barred from permits, easements, or stepping onto my perimeter without written consent. Marla watched her lawyer whisper like agreement could rewind tape. It can't. I hired 2 local guys and turned the crime scene into a shop cedar siding that glows at 4 in the afternoon. Trenched clean shelves deep enough for lumber and a pegboard that might finally make me organized. I routed a small plaque that reads, Built by Marla. Rebuilt by Cal, forfeited. By a judge pettied, maybe. Accurate, absolutely. Neighbors came by in that careful way people do when they've spent a year pretending you were the problem. A man brought banana bread. Too much cinnamon. I ate it on the porch and watched the river shrug past like it always has. Marla popped up on cable news in County Orange under bad fluorescent. Do you take responsibility? The anchor asked, and she said the line. You can set your watch to. This is what happens when a woman challenges the status quo. I was protecting the community. He was hoarding land. The anchor blinked like she'd heard that script before. Mentioned invoices and relatives and law. I closed the laptop and laughed into my coffee. There's always a speech. There's always a mirror with someone else as the villain. I keep the court order framed by the light switch next to a laminated Meadowview flyer that says community first individualism is the enemy of order. I took a Sharpie and wrote, not on my land, boundaries aren't rude. They're how peace holds. And if there's a moral, it's not that you have to yell louder, It's that you have to measure, photograph, and call things by their names. Paperwork isn't glamorous, but it wins. So, tell me this. Where do you draw the line between community and control? Is a deed, or does a committee get to edit it? If they like your view, have you seen power dressed up as stewardship? Yeah, that happens. Drop your take in the comments. Argue with me. If you want, tell your own story. If you've got one, and if you think property lines still matter. Hit like and stick around. There's more small-town justice where this came from.